We'll be starting in 3 to 5 minutes, guys, so I have a quick delay. Oh, I gotta switch over real quick. Hello, everybody. Let me update weather in our background real quick and these stocks, and we'll get started. Welcome to the 18th episode. Oh, yeah, I'm not muted. We're good. You're muted, though, which I'll unmute you now. So we're good there, Tom Boy.
Okay.
It is currently July 7th, 2025, actually. And I hope everyone had a great 4th of July. Had a great long weekend. I know I did. I was pretty busy. But all good, and I'm hyped for this Friday. This Monday. And a little rainy out today, but excited to be doing the show again with Tommy, who's back this week.
Good to be back. Thanks everyone that decided to tune in today for episode 18. Crazy to believe we're already 18 episodes into this. But it's like always, it's good to be here and happy to talk about the news.
Yeah, let's get started with it. I'll get started with whoever, but before we get going, make sure you drop a like if you're watching. The likes help us on YouTube, get us out there. Share on Facebook. Facebook links in the description. Like us on there as well. Share on there, and that will help us get us going. We post all of our events too on Facebook. If you get those likes going too, we tried to do a little bit before. Kind of forgot about it today. It was a busy one. Today though, like everyone see, and we see below it now, it's actually 73. A little bit rainy. Getting a little bit chillier out today. It wasn't as high as it was. It was 87 and 63 today. Tomorrow's going to get a little chilly though, so 80 and 61. No rain tomorrow, just light clouds. It might rain all week though. When I was looking at the weather channel this week, it said it was going to rain all week. I said, sweet Jesus. Wednesday, rain, 83, 65. Thursday, rain, 82, 64. Friday, this says no rain, this clouds. Hopefully that's what we get, 82, 66. Same with Saturday. Light clouds, 86, 70. Sunday, some thunderstorms, 84, 67. Next Monday, rain, 84, 67. Looks like we're going to have a rainy July, which ain't that fun if you're going on vacation, but it's pretty fun if you're sitting around working. Helps out for garden. Don't have to water your garden that much. Some free water. For stocks, you could see stocks above us as well for today. We had a lot of red. Basically, Dow was down 1%, Nasdaq was down 1%, Russell was down 1.5%, the S&P was down 1%, 0.8%. And Tommy will be going over stocks for the whole week and last week.
Yeah, actually, I prepared stocks for today as well. I did a little differently.
Oh, heck yeah.
So yeah, stocks today they were down 422 points. Nasdaq, that was the Dow. Nasdaq's down 188 points. S&P 500 is down 49 points. And as you're going to talk about in our second national news topic, that is because of some news that broke today around 4 p.m. In regards to tariffs and international trade. So that's why we're seeing the numbers in the red today.
Yeah, let me see. I could pull it up on my iPad here in a second if it lets me click on for the week. So Dow Jones was up for the past week, 0.9%. S&P was up 0.66%. How's Apple doing? Was up 4.5%. And then we could also do real quick. Let's see how we're doing like a month in. A month for Dow Jones is up 4%. Good for us. S&P 500 up 3.7%. Do like that because then, we got to buy a decent percent of that 401k. So when we were down low, so good to hear. Tommy will be starting off our funny news topics. We have two quick ones for this week.
Yeah, let's talk about our favorite incel, Mr. Elon Musk. Who just seemingly is just hell bent on transforming this nation into a version of radical capitalism where everything is just just based on market demand and that's all he's concerned about. So basically what we're having right now with Mr. Musk, what's going on is he is very, very, very upset because he does not like this new spending bill that got passed and it was signed on the 4th of July, the big beautiful bill as the president called it. And Elon, who was against the bill and even spoke out against the passage of this bill, was against it because it legitimately does add to the deficit and he views the bill as government waste, which large parts of the bill, in fact, are government waste, and increase the deficit. So, but obviously that upset Trump a lot, and big rift. The boys be fighting, and they're not gonna be making up anytime soon. That they're doing their public spat. So Elon's now saying, I'm gonna go form the America Party.
Yep.
Like, which to me, that is just like, like, I work in politics, and like, to me, like, that is like a whole other level of like self-aggrandizement. It's like, oh, I'm just gonna start my own political party. It's like, dude, who the fuck do you think you are? You're gonna start your own political party? Why don't I start the Tommy Summers political party? I know I'm a better man than Elon Musk. You know what I mean? I get more followers than that. Like, come on. Like, it's crazy. Elon, he just needs to, calm down. He needs to go back to just, running his company, and just disappear. Just disappear. Like, he's very good at disappearing. Like, he disappeared out of his children's lives. Like, he needs to
True.
disappear out of our life.
True. Amen to that.
So that's my take.
And like I think a lot of it's just interesting too, because a man like Elon Musk has proven time and time again to be so disconnected from the actual reality that he wouldn't know what an American party would be. And like kind of you're saying, like starting your own political party is just hard because even helping out Trump, it was a drop in a bucket. I think less than 10% of his super PAC fundings for his presidential win, and it's like that's half of money spent overall for both parties. Like it's always been hard to do a third party. They tried it for Tea Party, Green Party. It's never works. Tea Party kind of became Republicans again because they couldn't really fight in any elections, if I'm not mistaken, back in the early 2000s. And there's still, people on both sides, but yeah. And if you don't like Elon, I think, like I'm saying, like he's so disconnected from everything. He kind of is just crazy rich billionaire who kind of, I bet money that just like hasn't cooked dinner for himself or his kids in years, and just heavily abuses himself. He says like how many, they said a lot of, like he was on a lot of drugs too when he was in the White House and stuff. That's no reason why they made him leave. So there's just, he's crashing out, and like you're saying, he needs to focus more actually on like his companies because they're going down. Tesla's doing bad and bad again. No one's buying that stuff, especially kind of like what we're saying with this one beautiful bill, and some of it like with the EV mandates, and like it's not even a mandate. Like it was just like EV tax credits. Like Elon said, like, oh, I don't make money off of it, but he also knows it's a great incentive to why people buy these cars. So if you lose that, people will probably not just buy the car overall. They'll go back to buying the four bangers, old reliable, and we'll be having a great day. So, you could still buy a Prius that's not an EV and still gets 50 miles to a gallon. So.
You mentioned the EV mandates and the EV sorts of tax incentives and stuff, and that's what our dear leader Trump is saying is what caused this rift between Elon and himself. Now, if you actually believe that, I don't really believe that. I essentially believe that like just Trump is just looking for a reason to like distance himself from Elon. Yeah, like. But that's what he says is going on. Like, I think the boys are just fighting. They're so emotional. They're just so emotional, these two. Like it's crazy, and they just need to get out of our lives.
Agreed. And if Trump's in the state he is, and kind of like physically and mentally, same with Elon, they're just going crazy. Both of them.
Now politically, I love this America Party. Like from
true.
A political strategy perspective. Please, pull out all the deficit hawks from the Republican Party. Please do that, and please run some county commissioner candidates here in Trumbull County while you're at it too. Politically, strategically, it helps the left for sure. But the downside of that is Elon.
Mm-hmm. And it's interesting too. Like for right, we'll always say like how divided the left is, but if the left ain't trying to split up. You know what I mean? You didn't see like crazy rich people on the left trying to do this, so it kind of just shows how we are right now. And like you're saying, I'm fine with it. And I've seen people around here in like Youngstown talk about running as an American party, and it's like it would be great if they were truly connected to like these actual hardworking Americans. But like a lot of them are like right wingers that kind of like don't really believe a lot of this stuff. So I don't know. It's all crazy. Like there's good people on both sides.
Yeah.
But, sometimes you just have to actually like be connected to society and actually talk to these people every week, every day. So it'd be interesting. And then
even
before you go, well, you can finish up.
I was gonna say, and you mentioned you mentioned before that um the EV mandates. That's why Trump was that's the proposed scapegoat. That's the proposed reasons. And even if that, let's just accept that reason. That just highlights why someone like Mr. Musk should not be in government. He was
Mm.
essentially, he's CEO of Tesla, one of the largest electrical vehicles manufacturers in the world. SpaceX, the biggest like rocket company in the world. But also you have Mr. Musk who has his hands in all the regulatory agencies. Like, just if you like pull apart like all the funny drama I just talked about, like Mr.
Hmm.
Musk should never have been in the White House just for pure conflict of interest and ethical reasons.
Yeah, and like for hypocrisy, so much too, and it happens on both sides. But like a lot of people like that, like they're like kind of need a doze and they don't trust the government, needs government cuts because of past government corruption. But then they're fine with like a business owner controlling his own regulations, which to me that's corruption. So like what I mean, you don't
Yeah.
answer corruption with corruption. You screwed it over for a lot of other people, and you just didn't think about it because you're dumb. So that really sucks. Our second quick funny topic is about President Trump says for July 4th next year for our 250th anniversary, he wants to stage a UFC fight on White House grounds. It would be around, I think they're saying 200,000 people would be there, is what they're trying to get, which would be just crazy. Oh, sorry, in front of 20,000 to 20,000 and 25,000 people. Which is interesting. Like, I mean, you could just have it at a huge stadium, and have it in America at an event, but they wanted to have it for White House ground, which is kind of crazy to me at least. Said every one of our national parks, battlefields, and historical sites are gonna have special events of Honor America 250, and I think we're gonna have a UFC fight. Trump said, which to me kind of shows just like how he sees all these other things that are actually like important to American history and why we're here, and he's like, let's just do the ignorant American thing and have a UFC fight in the front lawn of a White House, which is just really dumb to me. It's gonna make other countries kind of show this how ignorant Trump is and doesn't really care about history and honor and really and integrity with our country. This is a great thing. What is it, like 1/4 of a 1,000 year anniversary? Um, so I don't think that's gonna be cool. Um, He's Trump's close friends with Dana White. He's been going to a couple of those events this year, and he's been seen there, like the day before his military parade. So it's interesting to me. I definitely don't think it's something that's kind of like I'm saying, before, is really like good to have or very America. It's kind of like this disgusting, kind of like nationalistic. Kind of reminds me of some other stuff back in the day, like I like not Guardian, but like Gladiator type stuff that we just don't need to have anymore. Because I'm not a big fan of UFC, but like
Yeah.
even if it was F1, I wouldn't be a fan of that. But like whenever F1 race around the White House, I would be like, even if it was Biden, if it was Kamala, I would be like, that's kind of weird. Like so some stuff is just like too played in. Like to me, politics, you know what I mean. History should be history. When you make it kind of entertainment with like ignorant stuff, it kind of just shows like how we are as Americans and that we actually can't sit down and watch something about history. And I don't know. I kind of don't like that.
So my take on this is kind of interesting, which is that um, I think Trump, deep down, like he's overcompensating for something, okay, and he is a deeply, deeply, deeply insecure man. Mr. Trump is okay, and the
No,
reason
true
why
that.
I'm saying that is he keeps like hosting these giant events. Remember how his first presidency started? This was the largest inauguration of all time. It wasn't. It wasn't. It was Barack Obama's first inauguration. It was larger. And then we get to this parade. There's going to be 200,000 people watching my military parade. There wasn't. There was way more people protesting him. And now we're going on. There's going to be 250,000 people watching a goddamn UFC fight on the
Well,
White
yeah,
House
yeah,
lawn. Like, come on.
20,000 people
And
there, yeah, which would be crazy.
20
Um,
20,000, like
yeah,
like
they
like
might
what
be
what
able
is,
to
what
do
is
that.
up?
That's not that much. They probably can get 100,000 people to watch a big UFC
You
match.
think they could?
Oh yeah, they, they
Yeah,
they they could fill
but
up like the horseshoe if they wanted to.
right. Maybe they can, but that's really besides my point. The point is, like, why
Yeah,
does he care? You know what I mean? Like, what is he trying to
I don't know.
prove to himself, prove to others. I don't get it. Other than I don't see why a president of the United States would have time for something like this.
Good point.
Unless all they're into is self-aggrandizement and making themselves feel better. You know, you know, the next step I would anticipate out of the Trump administration, is they get rid of that armored limo and they get like a jacked up Ford F-150. That might be the next move.
It might be like a horse and chariot because it's like that shit, or like king and queen. Like it's just disgusting. You know what I mean? It's gladiator, king, royalty type stuff. And like we're wasting our
Then they're
taxpayer
really
money on it too,
overcompensating.
like just to resource it and get it like planned around the White House, and I bet safety and stuff. It's just gonna be dumb. Like we could do something that's actually like honoring America that's better than that, and kind of like just like for
Well,
parade.
you know, it,
Spend our money better. So the history books will laugh at this shit.
like it.
Tommy, in 50 years,
Oh
imagine
yeah.
opening up a history book, and you see an octagon in front of a White House.
Oh my God.
It's not going to be good. Like the thing that's funny is a lot of people on the right are like probably think that like, oh, if I just teach my kid the way I was taught and the right way was, they're gonna think it's okay. They're not gonna think it's okay, dude. I'm sorry. Like UFC is kind of dying. Like it's popular for what it is, but if you look at total numbers from like boxing, because UFC has replaced boxing. Boxing doesn't get as many numbers anymore, but UFC doesn't replace that either. Like boxing got way more pay-per-view numbers back in the early 2000s, and even before that in the 80s and shit. But than it ever did with UFC today. Like combat sports are kind of dying. The only thing that saves UFC is like mixed martial arts, and like, a lot of people like other combat sports that you could do in UFC. But like even those guys aren't the most popular fighters. It's really the wrestlers and the people that could hit. Um, so UFC's kind of rigged to not really help martial artists anyway. So personally, like I don't like UFC. It's kind of weird. Like after a while, like watching this like man hit each other and like make themselves more dumb. Like after seeing Ali, you should be like, all right, certain sports are cool, but safety should be number one. And boxing, like and fighting, isn't really about safety. It's about like the CTE and hurting someone. So like morally, it's kind of messed up to me just to like watch stuff like that. It's just gonna be disgusting in front of a White House. I don't know. Yeah, I like racing, and like
I
me and Trevor were talking about this. We're like, racing. When someone crashes, it's a bad thing. But like in combat sports and football, American football, like they love hits. You know what I mean? It's a good thing. So it all
Yeah.
depends on what you like to see.
If I could just speak directly to foreign governments around the world that wish to exert influence on Mr. Trump, we do know that Qatar is trying to give him an airplane,
Oh,
trying to
Qatar's gonna
influence
have a
him,
suite,
and as
bomb ass suite at this place for
what?
UFC. They're about to like have a suite. I bet like all these countries are gonna spend
Oh
so
yeah,
much money going to it. You know what I mean?
yeah.
Stay at Trump's hotel
So
again.
he's getting the airplane. Okay, we know he's a deeply insecure man. So what I would like to recommend to these foreign countries is all you got to do is you got to go on Craigslist. Okay, you got to buy a 2003 Ford pickup truck. The rustier, the better. Okay, and then you got to spend twice as much money on upgrades to jack that thing up, and then you got to put some nuts on it, and then you give it to Trump, and he'll be all happy.
Like a
That will just like
rough
fulfill
country
his
kit
like
too. A cheap rough country kits would work.
that yeah, that would fulfill his inner desire to have the biggest crowd size, like the little
Like
insecure man he
maybe it's just
is.
me. Like you could just competition in anything, and it doesn't have to be people hitting each other. I would rather watch kart
Right? Yeah.
races. I would rather watch marble races. People racing those cars on a freaking treadmill than the UFC. I mean, come on. And like I tell people, like we're advanced people. We have phones. We're very intelligent. We're very different than how we were in the Romans when there was gladiators. So I don't know. Just me. Um,
Even if you take the sport out, even like you were saying, if you take the whole sport element out of it, like UFC, like if someone was like, "Hey Liam, do you think it's a good idea to put an octagon in front of the lab?" Like, you know what I mean? Like,
Yup. The Octagon. Like it's just I don't know, crazy. Um, and one
okay, you
thing
want to move
before
on
we
to our
go
next
into
story?
national news too, we had so many topics this week. We didn't really have room for like I kind of realizing it now that like whole alligator Alcatraz stuff. But we'll talk about that next week because it's gonna be like that. It's gonna be built for 2 weeks. It's already flooded. There's probably gonna be so many reports of this crazy stuff happening. So we'll make sure we get that in next week.
When you had like Lauren Boebert was going there and all the crazy right wingers were, yeah,
It's
we
just
gotta
crazy.
talk
We'll
about that.
talk about it. Our first national topic there, Tommy, will be covering, which is a big, beautiful bill passing.
Spoiler alert: it is not a big beautiful bill. It is a massive tax cut for the rich at your expense. That's what this quote unquote a big beautiful bill does. Um, I guess if being robbed is beautiful, then I guess this is the bill for you. So this bill has been a long time in the making. There was a House version, there was a Senate version. As the House went to the Senate, they amended it, passed. It was 50-50 vote. Our great, great, great vice president, who does not have an affinity to couches, broke the tie. House concurred, bill was passed. Trump signed it on the 4th of July in another extravagant uh, PR stunt at the White House on the 4th of July. So what the bill does. So first off, it extends Trump's tax credits or tax cuts from 2017. So all those tax benefits that he initially passed in his first administration are now extended. It did increase the standard deduction for individuals, 1,000 for an individual, 2,000 for couples. That's only through 2028 though, because that helps working people. So that's got a timeline on it though. Then so of course this has drawn huge applauses, from the wealthy who are going to benefit from, having a lower top marginal rate. Medicaid, great Medicaid. Okay. So new work requirements, they take effect December 2026 for able-bodied adults without children, minimum 80 hours per month of work or volunteer service. And also there's a similar requirement for able-bodied people with children that are above the age of 15. I was reading that as well. So in theory, you could have a poor mother, not be able to poor single mother not be able to be around her kid, because he's now 15 and is somehow able to go work or it's just a weird requirement. So re-enrollment requirements, they were reduced. You have to re-enroll now every 6 months, provide income documentation. Then there was this big fight about the hospitals, the rural hospitals. They ended up they delayed the sort of like the provider tax cuts, but the rural hospital fund remained intact. That was very important for certain Republican senators and certain Republican members of the House to ensure that their local hospitals in their districts stay open.
Yeah.
So that's why, like for instance, Lisa Murkowski, a senator from Alaska, actually was very, very, very apprehensive about the bill, but actually ended up voting for the bill because they carved out an exception like this just for her state of Alaska. So her state will have all the rural hospitals, have all the funding. They'll be fine, but for the rest of us, the hospital fund remains intact, but there is going to be like some provider tax cuts. CBO estimates. So CBO, that is the Congressional Budget Office. They are a highly regarded nonpartisan entity in the federal government. They sort of provide like reports on the effects of different legislation. I've actually read some of them. They're fascinating. At least I think they're fascinating. The CBO estimates that Medicaid, because of these restrictions, that 12 million people will lose coverage, which is the first time in a very, very, very long time in American history that it is projected that people are going to lose health insurance and not gain health insurance. We've been on a steady incline of insurance, more people getting insured since the Affordable Care Act. Welfare and SNAP. Again, new contribution rules for SNAP programs. They require states with higher error rates to contribute 5 to 15% starting in 2028. So that's just sort of some defunding of SNAP if states are not able to meet some benchmarks. Adding work requirements for able-bodied childless adults to receive food assistance. So if you don't work, you're not going to get any food. That's
That's crazy. Yeah.
That's crazy.
America.
Social Security. Social Security is for retirees, temporary boost to standard deduction up to $4,000 for seniors through 2028. The infamous SALT cap, that's state and local tax deductions, raised from $10,000 to $40,000 for 5 years. Again, these all have different time frames on them because they help working people. Where a lot of the stuff that helps the wealthy is permanent. Clean energy, Gets, it reduces clean energy tax credit, wind and solar. They're going to be phased out gradually. And he did get his tax on tip things as well. So, that is sort of like a very high level overview of, what exactly is in this sort of supposed big, beautiful bill, how it's going to, it's going to reduce benefits. It's going to basically just serve as a giant redistribution of wealth from the middle class and the poor to the ultra wealthy, which just seems to be a new tradition that seems to be going on right now here in the United States. We just seem to keep doing that, just taking it from the poor and giving to the rich. But that's where we are, and unfortunately, elections have consequences, and it's going to be incumbent upon us as voters, as young leaders, and as people that care about not only our country but care about each other as fellow citizens, to make sure that we're able to
And it's
right
interesting.
these egregious
Um,
spending cuts.
the deduct tips and overtime up to it phase out begins at 150 for an individual. Here in Ohio, that's a lot of money. It
Yeah,
depends if you live in a city, but not even that. Like construction workers that make good overtime, work a lot of overtime, make over 150K a year. Same with people in the oil field. So a lot of people that Trump's people have voted for this, even though they're going to be getting some relief, once they hit that 150, which they could hit easily when they work them 80-hour shifts in construction, or a lot of them do work in oil, um, out at season make a ton of money. So it's kind of like it's going to be interesting to see if you're two nurses that work a lot of overtime of money, a lot of overtime, or your travel nurses, you make over that a year. I've seen, you can look it up on just averages and stuff. So here in Ohio, that's good, but in like New York, Texas, Florida, California, expensive states, that's going to be hard to live off of. And eventually, I'm basically trying to say, it doesn't. It's probably going to phase out anyway. Like it's not going to matter because the phase out begins at 150, but you know, it's not really going to matter deducting your tips and overtime and your taxes in the long run. I bet. Especially if you're already making 150K a
and
year anyway, you don't get much back in taxes.
my understanding is people that have a thorough I have a thorough understanding of public policy, but tax policy is not my strong suit, I will admit.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but for people that really study this stuff, they have a lot of concerns about no taxes on tips just being like used as a vehicle for tax fraud, essentially. Like that employers would make people tipped employees, so they don't have to pay them more. Like it from people that I hear that seems to know a lot about this subject, they have a lot of serious concerns about no tax on tips, no tax on
Mm-hmm.
overtime. It seems like to me a better solution would be to just eliminate the sub minimum wage. That's what a lot of people are calling for. Like
Yeah, agreed. Because a
is
lot of times
you go to
these tipped employees, you just get your tips in cash at the end of the day anyway. So that's not getting taxed
right.
either. So it's not like when you were in the lower tip bracket. You know what I mean? It matters, especially even if you're making a lot of overtime. So I don't know. It's kind of crazy to me. It's gonna be very minimal, and
I
and
just
like it's still gonna add
I just think
trillions to the
employers.
debt. So it's not a balanced budget. It's not really a balanced bill. So
No,
it'll be fun to see.
no, that's the thing about this bill is that the savings from cutting all these social programs is offset from the tax cuts to the rich. Like like it adds it's a massive reduction in spending that
Mm-hmm.
actually increases the deficit because the tax cuts are so insane.
Yep.
And they just keep operating under the assumption that, oh, the wealth will trickle back down, it's going to work out, like insanity. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. Like,
Yep.
come
And
on,
it's
people.
not. It'll be interesting to see what happens.
Yeah.
We can go to a national news topic too, which is about Trump diplomacy and his global trade blitz. Uh, Trump escalated global trade tensions with a wave of tariff letters. Uh, we're gonna go over pretty quickly what's in the letters, who's affected, and what can it mean for U.S. commerce and our markets. Letters were sent to 14 countries, including Japan, South Korea, and others in Asia, Africa, and Eastern Europe. Reciprocal tariffs are now set to take effect August 1st, extended from July 9th via executive action. Tariffs range from 25 to 40, depending on the country. So it's interesting, Tommy. that people that don't really understand not a flat tax, but a progressive tax, they understand of a progressive ways to do policy. You know what I mean? Like a progressive tax makes no much money. If you're a billionaire, you should keep, 80% of it. But like whenever you're hitting your Americans with these taxes that go up from 10 to 25 to 40, you do it progressively. So that's just interesting in my opinion.
Yeah,
So it would be cool. Trump cites trade
that's a good point.
imbalances and barriers to U.S. goods as justification, encourages foreign leaders to shift manufacturing to the U.S. to avoid these tariffs. For one problem with that is, though, even with the tariffs, it would be way more money to build a factory in America and then have to move everything that they don't build in America anymore, aka the machinery, the robots, to actually be in your factory. It's just billions of dollars, so they would rather just be in another country. We know this from the past and what people have done post NAFTA. A specific concern raised about key importance like autos, semiconductors, platinum, and pharmaceuticals. The market reacted, like me and Tommy were saying earlier. Um, Major stock indexes dropped. Dow down 422, S&P 500, Nasdaq also fell. Auto stocks with exposures to Japan and South Korea took noticeable hits. Guessing like for Honda, Subarus. South Korea would be the Kias. Um, Concerns over political retaliation and broader economic consequences might be in play. Lastly, what was at stake? Basically, $351 billion in the U.S. imports affected by those 14 countries, with Japan and South Korea making up 80% of that. A lot of that is, like I'm saying, a lot of these are like messing machines. In most brand new factories and like even old factories, you got to bring new machines in and new tooling in anyway. It's coming from South Korea, even car manufacturing. They're just the best of tech right now. Japan's also very good with like actual like hard machines. White House clarifies new tariffs won't stack on top of existing sector-specific ones. Yet threats of future hikes remain, so it would be progressive from like 10, 25 to 40, depending on what it is. Yeah, like I said, like kind of same the entire time. I just don't think we're ready for this. We've kind of been saying for the past couple of weeks. Like, I mean, we just don't have like those type of workers in America. That many amount of workers in America that want to work these jobs. Yet, even if a company's want to invest in it, it would take a lot. Back in the day, they used to have to build cities and just major infrastructure around these factories. Let alone bringing in all these imports, like we're saying, 80% South Korea and Japan, all these machines, and that would cost billions of dollars. A lot of the reasons why like we're making batteries in America for our electric cars is just because like it would be so much money to ship them, but like sometimes it's just cheaper to ship smaller, lighter weight stuff, and we could do certain things in America. But like I'm saying, it's $1 billion investment just all around, and like they're using old factories that'll grow away after a while. And a lot of that too, them EV mandates were based on what they thought government was gonna do. So, what's your opinion on this one, Tommy?
You know, Liam, when Donald Trump first ran for president in 2016, 2015, 2016, he said, I'm a winner. We need to. I'm a winner. We're a country of losers right now. We need to go back to winning, and under my administration, we will win again. Um, I don't know what he was thinking, because he clearly does not understand what winning looks like. If you look at the stock market today, way down, massive reductions in both domestic and international markets from in response to these tariffs. It's just been we're seeing the same story over and over again. Like let's take a step back and just rewind to, like, how we got here. Liberation Day. Liberation Day tariffs, and then boom, the stock market crashed. They come back off. Okay. Our stock market goes back up. Okay. And then, then the months go on. We're going to
Just for tip of
sector
tariffs at that
specific
point,
tariff
yeah.
here. Yeah. It's just sector, and the stock market's going up and down, up and down. Meanwhile, our loser of a president, he's no winner. Winners wouldn't do this because they would be smart enough to know that tariffs don't work like this. But meanwhile, he's just lying to the American people, saying, "Oh, this won't cost you anything. This is paid by the importer."
Yep, and
Or
a
paid by the,
lot of
excuse me,
people
paid
think
by
that too
the,
and believe him. And
yeah,
you just can't
by
believe
the
a
exporter.
president like that, either. It's crazy.
Yeah, so at the end of the day, like, an intelligent president who is a winner would not take an action like this, because an action like this isn't supported in fact. It's not supported in
Hmm.
logic on like how this is actually going to improve the American economy. So, um, yeah,
And it's interesting, like we talk
I
about,
guess my
like we're not ready, like, and we'll probably never be unless like we give our government power to do it, and we'll never do that. Like we're not authoritarian like China, where we're gonna force people to do certain work, right? And like
right.
I don't know, it's crazy to me. Like there was stats on Facebook I saw where it was like American farmers every decade, and now we're at like 0.2% of our population's farmers, and even like like not 20 but like 60 years ago, it was a good like 40%. You know what I mean? We're losing a lot of people, like like to certain fields, and that's okay. You know, we need better tech fields. We need more professional lawyers, more people that could build the robots and machines, code them. So I don't know. It'll be interesting. We're not ready for this, and like kind of like you're saying, if Trump was smart and knew the bigger picture, he wouldn't be even doing this. He'd be making America great at what we're great at, not changing it up.
And if you want to look at the huge, huge, huge 1,000 foot picture, is you're putting these tariffs on Japan and South Korea, who are threatening to put tariffs on these. Japan and South Korea are yeah, they're our most critical non-NATO allies. Of course, they're not in NATO because they're not in the North Atlantic.
Hmm.
They're in the South Pacific, in the Pacific. So or
But
North
our
Pacific.
military's been there for a long
Um,
while to establish certain
we
roots.
have we have military bases there.
Good trade.
They're protecting international trade, protecting international waters, protecting the democratic South Korea from the authoritarian North Korea. So there's a lot of other like geopolitical aspects to this. Where like South Korea and Japan are gonna be like, we're your friends. Why are you doing this? Like we're supposed to be on the same team, like countering Chinese aggression. You know what I mean? Like, so if you wanted to like look at like the massive picture, that's the massive picture.
Yep, that's crazy. And we can't really be doing that. Um, I don't know. And we said Trump's not the
No,
smartest, so.
it's yeah. I think I laid that point down pretty good.
Um, and we can talk all day about that. But before we go into our local topics, make sure you drop a like if you're watching. Like I said, Facebook's in the description. We'll go into a local topic one, if that works for you, Tommy, which I'll be starting off with, which is
Let's
how
go.
Liberty and Poland ended up getting funded. What was it called? They received Liberty Township will receive $1 million to fill sidewalk gaps along State Route 193 Belmont Avenue, which is great. I was trying to find, and Poland's getting 935,000, almost a million, for gaps along State Route 170. Both are part of a group of 22 pedestrian safety projects within Ohio's 100 and basically a $38 million highway safety improvement program. A lot of that was with the UPS and OPWC funding as well. When you help with OPWC, they could shift other money around, help out for highways, taxes, and I think we also voted for a little bit higher taxes. They increased taxes and gas. That goes back to the highways. Um, Working on like a sidewalk project, you basically can get like a half mile done for 50 grand, in at least engineering and design survey. So they could probably get,
Really?
yeah, and I don't know. I would have to look at how much it is to do because I kind of figured it might be like 200 grand to do. So you can get like a mile and a half of sidewalks done with this, and if it's all one project, it makes it cheaper, like to design engineering wise and even bid out. So they might be able to get a couple miles done with this for both townships, which would be awesome. Um, yeah, they both together got 2 million funding, um, which is great to see. It's going to address critical areas where pedestrians currently walk in the street or dodge traffic, which you'll see a lot on Belmont and in certain areas in Poland too. A lot of people complain about that. There was 125 pedestrian deaths in Ohio last year and already 50 this year, which is kind of crazy. For 6 months, so we'll probably hit 100, which would be crazy. Infrastructure like that could be lifesavers for people. A lot of people do have to walk certain areas. We went to El Jefe here in Girard um, Saturday for some quick karaoke, and we walked there because we were gonna drink. Grant-funded work is scheduled for 2028, allowing time for planning, engineering, and public input. To 3 years. It'll probably engineering takes a whole year, so they definitely have enough time to get it done and actually build it. Building stuff like that won't take too long. Probably take like a month. Sidewalks are pretty easy, and you kind of need connecting areas because some of these areas, especially around Belmont and in Poland, are townships that they don't really like regulate. Especially back in the day, they barely do now. Some do now. To put sidewalks in certain commercial areas, let alone like ADA sidewalks. So if you can connect those and actually get like a sidewalk path going to someone that's say like 5 blocks away from the bus route that could actually get to that bus route now, that would be amazing. Improve sidewalks and curbs, kind of like I'm saying, healthy lifestyles through walking and biking as well. People that want to walk to the Walmart in Belmont. There's tons of plazas in Liberty Plaza, a ton of businesses in there. Over Giant Eagle should help with that. Better access to schools, shops, and parks. I don't know if there's any schools around Poland. Belmont doesn't really help out too much, but maybe if you take buses, stuff like that. For families, and it definitely helps out seniors and people that don't drive cars. If America wants to be less car dependent, you need more sidewalks. So that's great to hear. Potential economic uplift as neighborhoods become more walkable and attractive, which is very true. This part is a real estate thing, and one thing if you want to live somewhere where you could walk. A lot of developments back in the day didn't put in sidewalks, like sub-developments and the suburbs, but now they do that because it's an attractive thing to do. Walk your dog, have that active lifestyle, which is great. Um, Poland also got another 650,000 earlier for safer pedestrian crossings near schools, which is the Safe Routes to School funding, SRTS. I've done some projects for that. They kind of suck, but that's because it's a lot of oversight for some sidewalks. But ODOT funded. All depends where it's at as well. A lot of times some of these are like you're not in ODOT right away, so more easement work and legal work to do that, which is cool to see. Um, It'll be interesting to see expected. This will probably be in the coming years. Public engagement. You can go to township meetings for route plannings. There'll be contractor bids here in the future, but a lot of it's just ODOT. Given via public input how they like to see that. It'd also be nice to see like how it ties long-term infrastructure goals in that area, because I know it would be really nice if Belmont was more connected to Youngstown, and you could do that with sidewalks. Actually, I know people that have thought about it. This is very expensive to do, so if we can get state funding and other funding, it'd be nice if we had federal funding, more of that. So make sure you stay until like 2028. It would probably be 2027 once they start calling the people to give your input. And really, that's it
So
for me on that one. Unless you got any input, real quick, Tommy boy.
yeah, so real quick, uh, my background is political. Your background's engineering, and it's going to be refreshing to hear me say, I'm just a big fan of these sorts of investments and if in public infrastructure like this. I think it makes a lot of sense. It supports the engineers, the workers who are building this. It improves the lives of people that benefit from these sorts of public private partnerships. Improve infrastructure, good middle class jobs. I think that's just all around a good thing. The only thing I'm disappointed with is I'm so excited about, infrastructure spending. I wish I had like a train whistle, like one of those wooden train whistles, so I could just like blow it right now. But unfortunately, I do not own one of those right now. So
Is your
good
bad
news.
joke? Did he
No,
do
that's
that?
just me. That's just me being me.
Oh, okay.
I
We're
just,
good there. Okay.
I bet he did. I bet he did. I bet he did though. Actually, I remember. I believe there's a YouTube video out there of someone gifting him a wooden train whistle. I'm gonna
Maybe
have to
that's what
find
I'm
that.
thinking of then, yeah.
Okay.
I remember something like that for some reason.
Uh, so no, great news out of Liberty Township
Hmm.
in those parts of Trumbull. So
Yeah,
you
to
ready
me,
to
like
move on to the
sidewalks
next
only help, like we're
topic?
talking about, so it'll be great to see. They can get something connected to schools too. That's great. Some of it I always say too is like a local community thing. They would pay the taxes if they wanted to, but they don't. So some of that you got to take a local responsibility too as well from this state and federal responsibility. Tommy, be going. Yeah, you can go into a local topic too.
Yeah, I'll go through this quick. So here in Trumbull County, there was this new report that was dropped by the Ohio Department of Jobs and Family Services report. talking about workforce participation, sort of workforce development here in Trumbull County. But unfortunately, they predict the Ohio Department of Jobs and Family Services predicts a 1.76% workforce decline in Mahoning and Trumbull counties, which are among the steepest projected drops in Ohio, only surpassed by like the Cincinnati metropolitan area. Statewide average decline is at 1.63%. Unemployment claims are slightly up, and Trumbull and Mahoning counties remain above the state average. However, there is some sort of disagreement on the exact sort of future of or outlook, I should say, of Trumbull County, because you have various economic people. This guy named Gary Wagner, who disputes that, who he refers to Federal Reserve data, showing payroll growth from 2024 to 2025. So there is some disputes. Is the jobs and family services numbers actually correct?
Mm-hmm.
We don't know.
It'll be interesting too, because I don't know how
Wagner
payroll
says
data
no.
works. If it's just up with inflation, that would make sense. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? But if it's up and we actually have
Right.
more workers and stuff, that's different. Yeah.
Yeah, and you have Youngstown Warren Regional Chamber. They're saying that workforce wages and populations are all rising. Labor force returned to 2020 levels, wages up 3.6%. From 2023 to 2024, population saw slight growth. So you have these sorts of disagreements. So it's kind of interesting to see that there's no sort of consensus on the trajectory that the valley is on.
Yeah.
Hopefully it is a good one. We got the paper mill coming in, Amazon fulfillment coming in. So
Yep.
there is an upward trajectory, and let's just hope that we continue on that upward trajectory, and hopefully the state's numbers are actually incorrect, and we keep growing.
Mm-hmm. Agreed. Because it's interesting too. Like I feel like the state might have better oversight, but maybe it's for local people too. They might know better. So, and like we're saying, we have all these mills coming in and all these new factories. So it'll be good to see, and like we should have some improvement. There's a lot of business around here now, more than what we used to have. It's interesting how labor's back to 2020. I wonder if that's just like we lost a lot of industry and factory workers, because like businesses have boomed since 2020 around here. A lot more hours in Boardman than we've ever had. So yeah, like we're saying, it's kind of interesting for discrepancies. But any other input on this one, Tommy? Keep going. No biggie.
No, just basically I think we're showing signs of growth, but there definitely is some uncertainty. This is a very nuanced discussion. Context matters. So we're just gonna have to wait and see how this all plays out, and hopefully, the area keeps improving.
Yep, and I can only hope for the best as well. More engineering, bunch more. It'll be interesting to see too, like with less money if I build back better. What we're going is a lot as well with that. Interest rates aren't going down as much. Trump's mad at that, and saying that they should look into and investigate Powell and the Federal Reserve for not dropping interest rates. It all depends on how we spend money, and the president can't control how Americans spend money. So. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
Even with tariffs, Americans will still spend money. People with smart with their money won't spend as much, or have already spent their money because they knew that it would be $50 more or whatever. So once tariffs came in, or
I'll keep buying watches.
So. Yeah, same. Probably not as many, but I definitely got some before the tariffs, so that's good. And that's really it for me this week. I know if you enjoyed the show, make sure you drop a like here on YouTube. Our Facebook's below in the description. Follow us on there, like us on there. And then also, if you could, we'll post on there so your friends can start following us and start liking the content. We'll be having our Northeast Ohio Sports Show on Thursday at 8:30. Healthy Life back on Sundays. And I kind of want to do a music show if I have time Saturday, which I might this week. So it'll be good. Nice to get Tommy back this week. Had a little bit longer episode this week, but good topics. And like I said, we'll be talking about some other crazier stuff that's been happening next week when we got more insight and reports on that. And like I said, about alligator Alcatraz down there in Florida, Flow Rider. This would be interesting. There's crazy stuff happening and disgusting stuff, but we'll get in with this administration. So, any other inputs before we go, Tommy?
No, it's just a great episode today. It's great to be back. Of course, I'm back. We have a long episode. I'm known to yap occasionally. So, but no,
Yeah.
It's been great. And I'm looking forward to doing the show next week.
Heck yeah. Hope everyone has a great night, great start to your week. which is not a short week like last week for the 4th, but some people took today off, so all depend on how you're living. Hope everyone has a great next 4 days, and we'll be back here Thursday for some sports. Had some good racing last week with the British Grand Prix. IndyCar was in Ohio, so definitely get some good racing. So excited to talk about it on Thursday.